rest to me was an afterthought. It seemed unproductive. It seemed like the last thing I needed to do. It seemed lazy. That's literally what I thought about resting. My body caught up with me and started screaming at me. And now I see rest as the most important thing. And it's like the reverse of my previous years of thought. Have I rested enough to do my most productive work? And that was never how I lived my life. Literally for 38 years, did not have that capacity or think in any way, shape, or form in that way.
I'm Tiffany Sauter, and this is Scared Confident. You guys, what are we doing? We are recording this podcast intro in the car because this is sometimes what a life of and looks like. If you're listening to it on just like audio and not YouTube, and this is not the sound quality that you're used to, I'm so sorry. You deserve better. But this is just where we're at. This is like one of those weeks where not everything's coming together quite perfectly, and we need to hit a deadline. So brought my mic, rolling in the back seat right now. We had some family things going on, and we're making it happen. So, okay. But I want to introduce the interview that you're about ready to hear. You know those people you meet and you talk to them for the first time, and you're like, I don't know. Have we actually met before? Because this feels like super normal to be talking to you. That was what my conversation with Erin Diehl felt like. It was like two friends talking together that had known each other forever, but in fact, it was the first time that we were connecting. So I'm excited for you to hear this conversation. Erin just released a book, but she has like always been the funny girl in her friends. You know, like she's the life of the party. She's the one who like people are just like used to her coming in and stepping up and getting things going. And over the last couple of years, as she's gotten older, has gone through a journey of realizing like being the funny girl, yes, that's who she is, but like that wasn't all of who she is. And it wasn't totally serving all of like who she was becoming. So anyway, we just had like a really transparent conversation about what it looks like to be in two career homes, raising kids, and stepping like most fully into who you are and being comfortable with the awkwardness of letting go of some of who you were, but it isn't maybe going forward with you. And that can be kind of awkward and weird. So, okay, that's who Erin is. She's amazing. Listen to this interview. I think this is so funny. This microphone is like 3 centimeters from my teeth, and I'm in the back of a car. So that's how we roll sometimes, people. We just got to get it done. No excuses. Chop, chop. All right. Thanks. Listen in. Okay, Erin. This is going to be a fun conversation. You are like all the things. You're a mom, you have a career, you're an entrepreneur, and you're funny.
Oh.
You know, everybody needs a good, funny friend. I feel like if you're improv, you're funny.
I hope I show up. I hope that comes through today. No, I'm just kidding. I feel like
so much pressure.
Yes, a lot of pressure, but I'm here for it. I'm so here for it.
Okay, you talk about kind of a wide array of topics, most of them in like the feeling space of life, radical empathy, humor in the workplace, self-love. What life experience has brought you to a place where those things are such a focus for where you think, where you put your time and what you want to teach?
Oh my God. Okay. I'm going to lay down on the couch. You're my therapist now, Tiff. Okay. Because when I think about all of those fundamentals, I think it's a lifetime of stories, a lifetime of failure, a lifetime of achievements that really got me thinking in this way. From a young age, I knew that I was given the gift of gab, but I didn't really know how to channel it. I always said I wanted to be a talk show host. From when I was 13 years old, I was literally like, I'm the next Oprah. But I had nothing to talk about. I didn't know how to channel that into something. All I knew was I wanted to help people. And what made me happiest is when I could make someone laugh, when I could make them smile, and when I could make them feel how special they are. And there's this really cheesy quote that I love, but I'm going to say it. And it's pretend that everyone has a sign around their neck that says, make me feel important. I lived by that growing up, and I was always an actor, always in show choir. I was a dancer at Clemson University. I was always performing. I just didn't know how to take what I knew could help people and make it into something that is what Improve It is today, my company. And so we use improv comedy to train people on what we call power skills. And through so many, I mean, literally, we've had this business for 10 years. Our claim to fame is we've trained over 36,000 people to chicken dance. I've watched so many aha moments, and I call them aha moments because it's that moment where the light bulb goes off, but people are laughing. And I've seen what laughter and experiential learning can do and how it can help change people. So, radical empathy, self love is something I learned, which is, you always teach what you need to learn. Something I learned recently, but radical empathy was in my DNA, I think, when I was put on this earth. And so it was up to me to figure out how to give that gift to the world. And so now I have that gift. It's through improv comedy. And then the book was just a stretch from that.
I can imagine. I'm a mom of 4 girls, so I'm imagining your, like, 8-year-old self.
Yeah.
Like, constantly in motion, probably, like, just jabbering away, like, wanting to be in the center of whatever is happening, taking over dinner, dancing at Christmas, like so there's 2 reactions I feel like I could have to that as a mom. One is, like, "You're
Oh,
exhausting,
yeah.
and can you please not?" And one is, "This is so in you. How do I help you birth this gift well?" So what was childhood with friends and with your family? Like, was it a mix depending on
Yeah. So you're so funny because, okay, so let me just share this. My dad is 6'3". He looks like the Monopoly man. Okay. My mom is five,
mustache and all?
mustache and all. Okay. Give him a
Oh, it's
monocle.
amazing.
Okay. He doesn't have a monocle, but he should. My mom is 5'2", and she 6'3", 5'2", and she taught voice and piano out of my house. So she's like the highest soprano that you could be, literally has a vocal performance degree and piano player. And she thinks her daughter's going to be this musical sensation. Of course, I'm not. I go the opposite direction. But she said when I was born, I came out like saying, "World, I'm here," and then I have a younger brother, and he's more shy. He has a really, I think, warped sense of humor, but I get it and I love it. So, but when he was born, he was more, reserved. And so parenting, they said, for both of us was very different, and it's still different today. We're 4 years apart, and we moved a lot. I moved when I was 8 years old. I moved when I was 13 years old, and then I went to college where I didn't know anyone. So, I think for me, I remember moving, especially at 13, and kind of hiding myself a little bit, like reserving myself for this new group of friends because I didn't know if I could let my crazy really shine. And one of my best friends from where I moved from said, "No, you have to be yourself." And then the moment I did that, it was so much easier. And so I think, my mom is a character in her own right. So I think I have her theatrical side, also still does community theater. Okay. And then my dad he owned his own business, very entrepreneurial. So I have both of those things in me. But yeah, I mean, they're exhausted by me still to this day. Like they're coming here tonight, and literally my mom sent me a text, like the eye roll emoji, because I asked her to bring nice clothes because I need to film her today. She's like, "Okay." So it is exhausting, and I have a son who is me, and he's very exhausting, and also it's interesting to hear what comes through his mind, but I could see I don't know, are any of your girls like, do you have one that is similar?
My second one is very confident. Her just aura and personality and scale of her body, she's like a real life flamingo.
Oh, love it.
And so everything is just kind of a little captivating and startling about her. So she has natural presence, like there's just kids where it's like it's literally always been that way.
Yeah,
And I mean, we have, piles of dress up clothes like you
yeah,
would expect, and we have lots of dancing and singing, but I don't know. And oldest is in show choir. Like we have dabs of it, and I am a lot. I'm like that's kind of so we have pieces of it, but I think what's interesting too. So I want to ask you one more question about this vein. So when you're a performer and you moved a lot, and now you're an improv, which is like anchored in real life, but not actually real
yep.
life. Did you have to like? How do you flip between being the the giftings that you are, which is like an entertainer and funny and creating this world that we all want to live in and like stick our head into, but we don't have to be it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And like being Erin.
Yeah. Okay.
And
This is a brilliant question. I love this question, Tiffany, for real. You know how long it took me how to figure that out? 38 years of my life. Like I'm 40, almost 41. I went through this, like, especially my 20s. I thought when I showed up, like, I'm not going to be the person bringing a casserole. I'm not a craft person. I show up. You know what I mean? If I'm showing up, you're getting all of it. And so there was this period I went through from 2020 to 2022. I call it the 3 Ps. I was pivoting my business because 2020 was hard for everyone. I realized how much people pleasing I did in my life. And then I was in physical pain, like my back and like my lat muscles down was like a ball of just pinched nerves. Doctors couldn't diagnose it. I had all the labs, all the x-rays. It lasted for 2 years. And yeah, and it was like I physically would cry at night because my body was holding stress. And eventually I found this book called When the Body Says No by Gabor Mate and another book called Healing Back Pain by Dr. John Sarno. And what I realized was I was holding and repressing emotions from years of my life. And I had not touched them. I disassociated with work, with like a dirty martini and a bad reality show at night. I just disassociated and did not allow myself to process. Once I unpacked what those emotions were and dove into them and talked to them and dealt with them and forgave them, I kid you not, no surgery, no drugs, my pain went away. Isn't that crazy? And so after that experience, it was almost like this transformation of not only my nervous system, but my soul. And I felt like I didn't have to show up and be the clown. I was voted class clown in my high school superlatives, like, because that's how I wanted to be seen. I wanted to make you laugh. And I found myself at parties. I used to like walk in and do the dance and standing in corners having deep, meaningful conversations. And it just feels so much better. And I think that is the hard thing for performers. I think, and here's the interesting fact about my team, though. I have a team of 22 facilitators, all extremely hilarious on huge comedic stages all over the world. Most of them, I will tell you, 75% of them classify themselves as introverts because they give energy when they're on stage, but they need to fill their cups and recharge it. And so I've actually really realized how much I didn't recharge my batteries. I never rested. And that was also a part of the pain. It was a real healing experience. And so now I know how to deal. I know my truest, highest self, and I listen to her. I'm awake to her. For a long time, I think I was sleepwalking.
thanks for sharing that, Erin. I think whether you're like actually in entertainment, which is like, the vein that you were in, and also just the place you put yourself socially, or like I was a very young CEO and entrepreneur and I was acting.
Yeah.
I had a job, but I was I was trying to find the part. I was trying to wear different versions of it, like, and for seasons I felt like a caricature of the whole thing. And so I also had my version of like breaking. But I think even, women who stay home, it's like you're just pouring yourself out so much to a thing that you don't. And I think people of really high capacity just crash harder. Like the amount of pain you had to feel to actually say, I have got to take stock was probably like 40 notches past the average human being. It was like, it literally had to be debilitating. It literally had to take, and that's the same. I said, I used to live life like a game of bumper cars. Like I would drive as fast as I could until I just rammed into the wall and everything fell apart. And I'd be like, oh no, what happened? And then I would like
Yes.
get back in the car and I would drive as fast as I could and I would ram into the wall and I'd be like, oh, what happened? Instead of like, hey, look, there's like a caution thing and like
Yes.
maybe you should slow down and like, yeah.
Yes. Can I share something with you of that vein? Because, okay, my husband calls it burning the candle. Like, I would burn the candle to like the lowest wick, and then I would face plant, like nose to mattress on my bed, and I would be down. Like my body would just stop. And that's not even the physical pain. This is just as an entrepreneur building a business. That's why the first part of this book exists. It's all about self-love because I did that. And I have an activity in there called Lightsaber Day that is actually about this exact thing, because that is what I realized in my healing journey, was that rest to me was an afterthought. It seemed unproductive. It seemed like the last thing I needed to do. It seemed lazy. I that's literally what I thought about resting. Okay. And my body caught up with me and started screaming at me. So I started implementing this activity called a lightsaber day. My team now does, and myself, we now, and this isn't in the book, but this is because of the journey that I went on. We now have a 4-day work week. So we have Fridays off. They're optional days where you can, if we check email twice a day to make sure like we're not leaving anything on the table or clients don't need anything. I could go out with friends to get coffee, or I could sit in a coffee shop and catch up on work for 2 hours if I need to, but I'm not being bothered on our Slack channel. I don't, there's that day. And that has changed everything for me. And now I see rest as the most important thing. And it's like the reverse of my previous years of thought. Have I rested enough to do my most productive work? And that was never how I lived my life. Literally for 38 years, did not have that capacity or think in any way, shape, or form in that way.
So let's talk about the book. So it's called I See
Mm-hmm.
You. So I want to start with you walking me through the title. Like, words matter. I'm sure a book title you thought really hard about what this says, you want people to think or feel when they read it. So walk me through how you got to the
Yeah.
title.
So this is so interesting. I created this as a keynote first. All right. I had the outline of the keynote. I'd never delivered it, but I just loved the words I see you. And for me, I'm always like, I see you, boo, to my team. I see you. You're doing a good job. And so I wrote the book with I see you all woven within the text of the stories. The publisher I worked with fought me on this title, and I love them. Okay. Like they were trying to give me all these different title ideas because I see you could be like a horror film. If the book cover looks like, I see you kind of a deal. Or there were already some thrillers out there called I See You. So we landed with I See You with an exclamation point. I actually have it right here. I see you with the exclamation point.
So that it's happy and not creepy.
Exactly. And then the tagline is, and the book cover is very, teal and upbeat and uplifting, but and the subtitle is A Leader's Guide to Energizing Your Team Through Radical Empathy. That I came up with my publisher, but I see was just I had to have it as the title because it means two things. Number one, it's I see you as if I'm looking in the mirror to myself saying I see you. The very first part is all about self-love. The second part of the book is all about selfless leadership. So if I see me, I can see you. And the third part is all about a magnetic culture. So if you are a self-loving person, you have more love to give to those who you lead. And that's going to magnetize and attract people. It's going to retain people. It's going to not only for your team, but for your life. You can just attract so much more. And that was part of the healing journey I went on. And what's interesting in this conversation that is coming full circle for me is that for 38 years, I liked me. I did. She was okay, but I said mean things to me, meaner than I would ever say to a friend. But now I can truly say that I love who I am. And I think that is why I don't feel the need to showboat, to show up and try to perform. I can just show up as me because it's inside validation now versus outside validation. And when I say those 3 words, I see you, all it makes me do is smile and remind myself of how much I now see myself. And what I hope for people to do in this book is to love themselves, love others, and bring that to work. Like, let's make love a conversation at the boardroom table. Easier said than done.
I think the concept of what you're talking about is kind of having its day in
Yeah.
cultures. But you run an organization. How do you balance that with the realities of things like results and accountability and clarity is kindness and those kinds of things? Because they're not competing forces necessarily, but I think they can be perceived as that on the surface. So, how do you think through that? Because there's a lot of things that still have to get done in
Oh,
your life. You
1,000%.
can't just go around and hug and joke and love
Totally.
everybody. So it's an ingredient to the way that you motivate and you create clarity and you create connection. So how does that work with kind of the other more, other pieces of
First of
it?
all, I love clear as kind. I know Brene Brown like says that all the time. I live by that motto. So kudos to that. Want to just shout out. I love that
Mhm.
so much. So, okay, in the book, part 2, there is a case study and it's called 8-9 Jen. Jen was my former boss. Jen saw me for me. She literally hired me from a video that I was auditioning to be on the Oprah Winfrey Network. And people had to vote. This was like 2009 when all we had was Facebook and Instagram was just like a really horrible filter and a picture of your dog. This was like that era. And she saw me on this video where I was asking people to vote. I knew people who worked at the recruiting agency that she was at. She goes, "Oh my gosh, we have to hire this girl as business development for our recruiting firm." I had never done business development. I'd never done recruiting. And so I had 2 phone calls with her and she hired me on the spot, changed my life. She made me love coming to work every single day. I stayed in that job for 5 years. Did I love recruiting? No. Did I love doing sales for that position? Absolutely. I created some great relationships, but it wasn't where I saw myself long term. I stayed in that job because I had a leader who saw me for who I was to the root of my soul. And she used that and she saw who I was. She was empathetic enough to bring all of those things out of me in the job that I had. And it wasn't just that she did this for me, she did it for every single person in our firm. We were a small 9-person, all women firm. She celebrated each one of our individual wins. So, whether it was like a baby shower, whether we hit our sales numbers that month, we were celebrated. And we were also motivated by her drive for celebration and success. So for me, I had a leader before her that I called Chad in the book, quote unquote Chad, who was the exact opposite. I had Chad and then I had Jen. Jen showed me how empathy and how really understanding the human being, not the human doing, can change how you show up at work. And that job changed my life. Literally changed my life because I felt so good knowing that I was contributing to the greater good. And I stayed in that job because I had a leader who believed in me. And the only reason I left is because I created this idea for Improve It. And you know who cheerleadered me up and helped me get my very first client, which was United Airlines, by the way? Jen. And so that to me, I took everything she taught me and it was empathy. She is the case study of radical empathy. And I use it to lead my team. And I have one of my teammates, it's been there 7 years. When you're 7 years with Improve It, you get a sabbatical. She's going on her 1 month paid sabbatical this year. Every one of my facilitators have been with us either from 2016 when we hired or 2018 when we hired again. And I have 3 interns turn full-time employees who are just And one of their director of talent has been on this 10 years. Like, it's just, she was the case study for radical empathy and selfless leadership. And we are productive, we are growing rapidly, and we are successful because I think the core of who we are is solid.
Mm-hmm. What are ways that, if people say, okay, I get the concept of radical empathy, I get that it's working. What are some ways that I can like practically practice
Mm-hmm.
that either in my home, like at home, or in my career? Like, is there like little toolbox or little tips that you could leave us
Yes.
with?
And do you want to do a little improv activity with me, Tiffany?
Yeah.
Okay. It's called
Yeah.
empathy. Okay. So
Okay.
you can use this with your family. You can use this with your team. You can use this in any situation in life. It's very easy. So, okay. Can you tell me a challenge that you're having right now? It could be at work, personal life, whatever it is.
My brakes went out on my car yesterday.
Okay. Give me a little more.
My husband's traveling. I have one vehicle in my house right now that does not work, and I have 4 kids that need to go places in 3 hours.
Oh,
So I need to solve for
okay.
that.
So
Does that
that's
work?
perfect and that's crazy and I'm
Okay.
sorry. Okay. So here's how the
It's fine.
activity works. You say you person 1 says the challenge, person 2 repeats back the exact thing in first person. So my brakes went out of my car. My husband's traveling for work. I have 4 kids that need to go somewhere. I only have 1 car and I need this to happen in 3 hours.
Then what do I
Now,
do?
so me
Yes.
as person
Oh.
2, I repeated that in first person. What happened for me is I heard you the first time you said that.
Mhm.
I was like, "Oh, that sucks." But when I said it in first person, I felt it.
Mm.
And so I actually like saw a picture in my mind of your car in your garage. And I saw like your 4
Mhm.
kids like running around while you're trying to get somebody to come and fix your brakes. Like I felt that versus just
Mhm.
hearing you say it. So all it is
Mhm.
repeating back a challenge as a in the first person and sitting with that for a moment to feel what the other person is feeling. And it's not like I've taken on your energy. That's a difference too. I'm not taking on that. First of all, your energy is very calm, by the way. But if you had some phonetic energy or you were feeling a little
Mhm.
stressed, the goal is not for the second person to take on that energy. It's just to understand. And so this can be used when you have hard one on one conversations with a teammate. This can be used with your partner. This could be used in any scenario where you really need to understand a person on a deeper level. And is probably one of my most favorite activities that we do in workshops with people because they really see their coworker differently.
You're actually giving much more explicit language to a thing that I have been thinking about a lot lately. You said your husband also travels once a week or once a
Yep.
month for a week up to Chicago. And my husband travels a lot. And I have found I can get into a really victim headspace with that sometimes, where it's like, you have no idea what's been going on while you were gone. This is so crazy. My brakes are done. I've got to figure out how to solve and I'm just like, if he's gone for a long time, at the end of it, I can kind of run out of good attitude and be a little whinier than I'd prefer myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a little whinier than I'd prefer him to have to come home to.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my word. But I have found, and this is what you were just saying, when I think about he just got back, he's gone again, but he had to spend the first 10 days of January coming off the holiday
Mm.
crazies on a 10-day trip in 4 different
Uh,
cities. And I'm like, I could be like, "Oh, I'm so frustrated. Like, what in the world?" But I'm like, I cannot imagine schlepping my
I
crap
know.
through what was like 7 different airports. He was across like 3 time zones, and every morning he had to wake up and like be in charge and be productive. And it was from like Vegas to the Bahamas. Like it was like nothing was the
Yeah.
same. And I was like, that would be
Yes.
terrible. Away from the kids, not you just came off of a holiday sugar binge and now you're eating out every freaking meal of your life. You're not in your own bed. I was like, that would be terrible. And it made me have such a better
Yeah.
attitude about where I was, schlepping the kids everywhere. And I was like, oh, babe, that has to be so hard. Like, that has to be so hard. And when I'm when I'm able to do that and have empathy, which I am not naturally empathetic. That word is almost uncomfortable for me to say out loud. That's exactly what you're saying. So I think it can also be used in my like 2-career home world of when your spouse is traveling, say their schedule, say their routine, say what was required to yourself, because you are able to experience it differently. Like you said, like you feel it. Even when it's like steak dinners at 11 p.m., it's like you feel terrible when you're over 40
Yes.
and you eat a huge meal at 11
Yes.
p.m.
Oh my God, you're so right. I know. And I also, listen, how you feel. And I don't have 4 kids. I just have 1. But I'm like, when he's gone, and I know you're right, he's eating out of these lovely dinners, and we're eating like, we're eating another microwavable meal because I'm like, I'm only cooking this for the 2 of us. I'm just going to heat it up. I get a little frustrated, but then I realized he had to leave the house 2 days ago at 4 a.m. to get a 6 a.m. flight. And he's exhausted and he's doing, going hard for 3 straight days. And then he comes home and we're like, you're supposed to be dad again. And so I think that empathy, and I get it. Like, so I'm an empath. I'm the opposite. I am an empath. And I sometimes take on others' energy to a fault. And that's a part, I think, of being a performer and an actor is like, you can take on others' energy. So I kind of wish I was like you, because I have found that sometimes it's hard to not take on energy because I feel so much. And I have tips for that too, because we are all humans and we all are made of energy, and that's what we're attracted to and repelled by. So
I'm very good at saying, that feels like a you problem.
yeah, I wish I could do that, Tiffany.
I have my own.
Give me that.
That is not one of them.
Give me that. I want that. Because I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry.
We could text each other. How would you have empathy in this situation?
And tell me,
you're like, is this my problem to take on?
Don't give a crap, Erin. Don't care. Oh, you're not going to fix that. I love that. Give me you. Give me yours.
Not a me problem. Sometimes, like if you're thinking through, situations like, but I don't want to do that because then this, and then their mom is sick, and this thing. It's like those are not me problems. It's not a me problem. That is sad, but that is not a me problem. So
no, I want that energy. Give me that energy.
A balance is best, I think. But yes. Awesome. Well, Erin, where can people find you? We'll put links in show notes, but where can people find you?
Okay. My website is it'serindiehl.com, and the book, all the things will be listed there. And then having some fun on Instagram. I'm doing some sketch characters, and that is at It's Erin Diehl, Diehl.
Awesome. We'll put links in show notes.
Thank you so much. And this has been so much fun. Really need to think about how I can get you to help me be less people pleasing. That's what I need, Tiff. That's where we're going to go on my show. And you're coming on the Improvement podcast next. So we'll have you and introduce you to our audience.
This would be great. Yep. People can check it out over there. So thanks, Erin. It was awesome. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Scared Confident. Until next time, keep telling fear, you will not decide what happens in my life. I will.